Leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. It is not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed. A colossus of Kenyan politics, a man of unparalleled intellect, and a peerless economist, Mwai Emilio Kibaki set the record for the longest-serving member of Kenya's parliament over a period spanning 5 decades. But the zenith of his leadership was when in 2002, he was sworn in as the 3rd president of our great republic. His presidency will be remembered for many things.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki.
But most especially for being the season in our history when the second liberation yielded the fruits of so long a struggle. For this reason, his contribution to the furtherance of Kenya's multi-party democracy cannot be forgotten. This was a man who believed in leadership as being a calling to serve his fellow citizens, and not as a platform for self-serving ends. What many may not know is how exactly he entered politics. Mwai Kibaki was ushered into politics in 1962 when he first served as the executive director of the Independence Party KANU, and shortly thereafter, he was elected to parliament as the member for Donholm in 1963. But prior to this, Mwai Kibaki was a gallant academic, serving as a lecturer at the prestigious Makerere University at a time when the clamor for independence was rife and the nation was in need of vibrant, visionary leaders to steer the true course of the nation. Kibaki's life might have gone a radically different path if it hadn't been for Kenya's first vice president, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Jaramogi had read the Uganda People's Congress Manifesto, and he was impressed. Upon inquiring who authored it, he was informed that it was drafted by a young Kenyan lecturer at Makerere University. President Milton Obote of Uganda would then introduce Jaramogi to Kibaki, and shortly thereafter, Jaramogi convinced Kibaki to come back home and help KANU lay out development plans for the young nation. In fact, Jaramogi also purchased Kibaki's first car. Kibaki had been initially hesitant because part of his perks at the university included a car loan, which he was 3 months shy of securing. But Jaramogi knew that a young nation was in need of such talents, and so he assured Kibaki that a new Peugeot saloon would be part of the invitation to return home and help build a young nation. According to a former personal assistant to Mwai, the icing on the cake was 700 shillings for car maintenance and a rented house in Nairobi's Bahati area. After first serving as the executive director of KANU and initially as member of parliament for Donholm, Kibaki would relocate his political base to Othaya constituency in 1974, where he remained as MP until his retirement in 2013, having served in parliament for 50 years and in the executive as the president for a decade. His journey to the presidency had started long before the iconic Kibaki Tosha moment in 2002. It had started during the time when the clamor for constitutional revision and multi-partyism had reached fever pitch at the dawn of the 90s. Many Kenyans were at the time agitating for the provision in the constitution that introduced a single-party state to be repealed. A few days after Section 2A of the constitution was repealed,
that I have today assented to the bill as a sign of my commitment to political reforms.
Kibaki joined other political heavyweights including former Kajiado Member of Parliament John Keane, Raila Odinga, Martin Shikuku, James Orengo, and Charles Rubia to advocate for multi-party democracy. When Kibaki was launching his Democratic Party and advocating for a multi-party system of democracy, Raila Odinga was in exile in Norway for 6 months after being released from jail for opposing the single-party government. Raila joined Ford after returning from Norway. The two vibrant leaders' political journey was poised to be entwined later in life. Despite Kibaki's affiliation in the DP and Raila's membership in Ford, their vision for Kenya, particularly in matters of democracy, led them meeting again in 2002 when they managed to transform and redefine Kenya's political environment by legally abolishing the single-party state. Raila Odinga headed a group of KANU leaders who believed that the late President Daniel Arap Moi had double-crossed them by appointing Uhuru Kenyatta as his successor in 2002.
Na nikaona kwamba yule ambaye anaweza kuendelea kupeleka wananchi kama vile mimi ningependelea wananchi kuongozwa ni Uhuru Kenyatta.
They then created the LDP, while Kibaki founded the National Alliance Party of Kenya. However, after a series of meetings and negotiations, both private and public, the two political outfits merged to form the National Rainbow Coalition, NARC. What followed thereafter is the iconic moment ingrained in the mind of many Kenyans when Raila's voice thundered across Uhuru Park when he declared Kibaki Tosha. Months later, the coalition suffered a setback when its leader, Mwai Kibaki, was injured in a catastrophic car accident on his way back to Nairobi after a campaign stop in Machakos. Raila Odinga famously demonstrated his genuine friendship for Kibaki following the accident. In his book, The Flame of Freedom, he records what has been confirmed by many witnesses.
Raila sijui alitoka kwa gari gani yenye alikuwa pale. Nikaona ameshuka na amekimbia. Amesimamisha hiyo ambulance. Akamwambia dereva asonge. Yeye akachukua gari na akaanza kuweka gia. Akaenda akipeleka mzee Kibaki kwa hospitali.
He claims it occurred amid the height of political turmoil when the country was just weeks away from a general election. He seized the wheel and raced to hospital with the singular purpose of making sure a badly injured Kibaki survived. According to Kibaki's personal and longtime doctor, Dr. Dan Gikonyo, Raila again took the lead and made sure that Kibaki got safely on board a plane to travel to receive specialized medical attention in London.
They gave us 3 seats at the back of the plane. And I remember Honorable Raila Odinga, who was with us in that movement, I said, no, we cannot put our president in the back of the plane. We must put him in first class. And when we got there, Kenya demanded that then if you're going to go to first class, we must pay. And I remember all this was done by Raila Odinga. And he was there and he said, if you're going to pay, we are going to pay. And we must get seats on the front of the plane. The difficult thing was how to get a stretcher onto the front of the plane. The aisle is not wide enough to carry a stretcher. And I still remember, I have a lot of respect for Raila. He came with some young men, about 8 or 9 of them. And they carried that stretcher across that aisle to the front on their knees. They went on their knees, they carried the stretcher up on their hands, and on their knees they went from the entrance to the front seat of the plane. I've never forgotten. We were able to place the the oncoming president in a comfortable position in first class, and then we traveled to England.
As the clamor for a regime change was beckoning back home, Raila was in charge of the NAC campaigns, and he and his colleagues traveled practically every area of Kenya for the hunt of votes. Tears of joy, shouts of freedom, and an aura of optimism rented the air as Kibaki was sworn in as the third president of the Republic of Kenya, while in a wheelchair with a smiling Raila Odinga alongside him.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki.
Maybe reflecting on the ride that had been. This was a regime change. I'm inheriting a country which has been badly ravaged by years of misrule and ineptitude. There has been a wide disconnect between the people and the government. Kibaki and Raila prepared the groundwork for a new administration and a NAC. Although the two would have disagreements on which constitutional model the country should adopt in 2005, the two leaders would come together in 2008 when they would shake hands after following a contentious election. But Raila and Kibaki rose above the prevailing disagreements to unite the country, following an agreement that included mediation efforts by former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan and other eminent African leaders such as Jakaya Kikwete, Gracia Machel, and Benjamin Kappa, among others. The collaboration which followed saw Kenya enjoy a period of unprecedented growth. Several key projects were completed under their leadership, including the completion of the Thika Superhighway, the success of the free primary education program, and substantial changes in different government institutions. Kenya obtained its new constitution under the same coalition administration in 2010 after failing multiple times previously. We call upon all warring parties in the world to lay down their arms and pursue the path of peace, dialogue, and inclusive resolution of disputes. Mwai Kibaki. Their coming together has since been touted as a fantastic precedent, which has since been emulated, setting an example of how leaders who disagree on matters of principle can set aside their differences and work for Wanjiku. Kibaki's devotion as a transformational leader will be remembered. A man with little words but great deeds, a true epitome of great leadership. His wisdom, particularly in areas of politics and life, cannot be wished away, particularly at a time when Kenyans are gearing up for yet another general election. Gone, but surely never forgotten, Kenya's history books will ever afford distinguished prominence to one of our greatest sons, and a grateful nation shall always remember him with a remarkable sense of pride and nostalgia, most especially because of the foundation he laid, which other leaders now continue to advance.